What's going on? This is City Chapters Podcast. I'm your host, Bobby J. Today, I'm with Alfred Ottoson. And Alfred is a pilot mechanic for a Christian-based nonprofit called Mission Aviation Fellowship. He is in training for a mission to the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Mission Aviation Fellowship, aka MAF, provides aviation services to more than 400 mission agencies, churches, and humanitarian organizations around the world. So that's what he's going to be a part of out in the Congo, flying and helping people out there with different needs they have, and also spreading the word, the Christian word. Alfred, what's up, brother?
What's up? Excited to be here.
How you doing today, man?
Doing well.
I'm glad you're excited to be here. I'm excited to have you. A little backstory, me and Alfred met playing soccer. He's, not the first one on here from soccer, so a lot of people know. I know people in the soccer community. We played on a co-ed team together, and we played for quite a few years.
We did, yeah.
We had a good stretch.
Yeah.
Good stretch. I haven't played since Adam moved. The team kind of fell apart because he was kind of the anchor of the team.
Yeah.
I kind of miss co-ed,
yeah.
A bit. It was kind of fun.
Yeah.
I've been just playing men's basically since. Yeah. So.
Even when we had a pretty bad losing streak for I don't know.
We were called the replacements for a reason, I think.
Exactly.
Yeah, it was.
We had like a 20-something losing streak for
a while. It was a little depressing at times,
but
for sure.
we built it up, and I think we won.
We did really well in some seasons too. Yeah. So that was nice. Yeah. But I always, it was. Especially with the co-ed outdoor. I mean, it's not that serious, But I like winning. I do like winning, but we definitely struggled there on some of those games. So I'm sure Adam's going to listen. Adam, if you listen, what's up, brother? It's good.
What's up?
I hope you're doing well wherever you are, man.
Mm-hmm.
I hope I see you soon.
Yeah, I'll miss you.
Anyway, so we'll start from your beginning. You're not from the States.
No, I'm not.
Born in Sweden.
Correct, yeah.
And your family moved to Nepal for a mission when you were 1.
Mm-hmm.
So your family's been involved in missions all your life, essentially.
Pretty much.
And how long did you live in Nepal?
Lived there for a total of 6 years.
6.
So we went back and forth a little bit, but we lived there from when I was 1 till I was 6. And then we lived in Sweden for 3 years. And then us as a family got the opportunity to go for another year after that. I think that was in 99 to 2000.
Mm-hmm.
That was 10 years when we finally moved back to Sweden permanently, so to speak. Yeah.
So you went to Nepal again for a year?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Nice. And do you have memories in Nepal?
Yeah, mostly from that last year.
Yeah.
But also some from my early childhood.
What are some cool memories or life-changing memories you might have from that experience being in Nepal?
Oh, wow. That's a lot. I mean, that's kind of the trajectory of my life since. But some of the highlights, I think, was the simplicity of life.
Mm.
I mean, as a kid, we... So just to give a little backstory, my dad is a surgeon, so he worked at a hospital there. And at the time, Nepal, it still is in the bottom of the charts when it comes to poverty, infant mortality rates, social infrastructure, as in schools and hospitals and stuff like that. So, so he came to help there. It was a missions hospital. There were a few others foreigners there who served as professional doctors, and we had a little. We lived right next to the hospital. It was at the very edge of the town. Nepal is extremely mountainous, and so the town was stretched out on a hillside, across it, and we lived in the very edge of it. So it's very close to nature in a way, So I, as a kid, there was so much. I was outside a lot, climbing different types of trees, and like we climbed high up in like bamboo trees and stuff like that, which I
Wow.
was like, that was not super smart maybe,
Yeah.
but
That's what boys do, though.
it
I used to
is.
climb trees. My mom, I remember one time came out and yelled at me because I had to been like 40 feet up in a tree. Like, she was like, she was like having a heart attack. And I was fearless when I was a boy,
Yeah,
like
exactly.
climbing stuff like that. I didn't think about falling out, I
No,
just
you
was
did
like,
not.
think about climbing up.
Exactly. You see
Yeah.
like someone else do it. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, let's try it,
Yeah.
And then so it was a lot of exploring. You found like a trail. Like we didn't have a car. Right? No one had a car. The hospital had like 2 Jeeps that
Yeah.
if you needed to go somewhere, you hired a driver and then he took you to whatever city or town you needed to go. So we walked, everywhere, just like the locals did. And as a kid, you just had a lot of time to like explore little paths and like I don't know. It was just fun. Yeah, like
Yeah.
and
Where'd you guys live in Nepal? Like what area? Like
the town is called
Yeah.
Tansen.
Tonson?
Yeah,
Nice.
in the Palpa district, and it's fairly unknown. It doesn't draw a lot of tourism or anything like that. So it's the 2 places in Nepal that people usually know about is Kathmandu, the capital city. So
Yeah.
we lived. It varies how long it takes to drive depending on the road. They have like problem with landslides and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it would take like maybe 8 hours of driving on a bumpy road,
Yeah.
And then Tansen is like 3 or 4 hours south of Pokhara, which is more of a tourist attraction.
Okay.
A lot of trekkers come through there.
Yeah.
So that's like the closest portal to the Himalayas,
Yeah.
the Annapurna
Yeah,
circuit.
it's where all the
and that
climbers
stuff.
come through. and-
Exactly. And they have a beautiful lake there as well that a lot of people visit. So
Nice.
so that some people might get a reference for there. But
Yeah.
but yeah, we didn't have a lot of like Western influence. We didn't have a TV or anything like that. Which there was a TV room that we in the guest house close to the hospital, which we could like sometimes we would rent it or book
Yeah.
it as a family and like
Yeah.
have a movie night. But it was very simple. I miss it a lot, to be honest. And of course, it's the age before cell phones and all that stuff. So it's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
which was great.
Right.
I think from when I was like 9 to 10 that year, some of my greatest memories is like playing soccer. Actually,
Yeah.
then I was like old enough to kind of, engage with. One of my little regrets is that I never. I learned to speak English there. Because we were the only Swedes in the area, but I never really learned to speak Nepalese. But we played soccer on this like the hospital tennis court, and the local kids would come and like bring a ball,
Nice.
and then
that must have been awesome.
yeah, it was great. And like soccer
Yeah.
is like a universal language in a
Right,
way. Like
for
you know how to
sure.
kick a ball,
Yeah.
sort of the rules of the game. Well,
Yeah.
then you can come and play. you
Yeah.
know? So that was a ton of fun, and we're from like totally different worlds. We like and spoke different languages, believed in different gods,
Yeah.
but we had fun playing soccer.
Are the Nepalese primarily Buddhists?
Primarily Hindu, and
Hindu.
then
Okay. Yeah. Because that makes sense.
for a long time it was the only like official like Hindu nation, or like Hinduism as the state religion or whatever. I think that would be the correct term.
Yeah.
So yeah, very heavy. Hindu.
I guess I went to Buddhism because the Dalai Lama, right?
Yeah, and if
But-
I remember
but-
my history correct, the original Buddha, no, I can't remember his name. Was born in
Siddhartha Gautama or something
Something like that, yeah.
Siddhartha. Guatemala, I think, or something. I don't know how to pronounce
yeah.
it correctly, but yeah.
I think his like childhood home, like that palace they grew up in, is within the borders of Nepal.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
it's very, the roots are there,
Are
and
there, yeah.
there's some very strong Buddhist influences as well.
For sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and a lot of people didn't mind mixing, a
No.
little bit of each. So
Because I think Buddha is actually a Hindu deity. I think he's actually one of the deities in Hinduism.
it's something like that. Yeah,
because Hinduism has like 330 million gods.
something. Yeah,
It's-
each
I'm
village
reading-
has its own.
Yeah, I'm
like
reading.
God, and
I guess we're getting on to other religions.
Yeah,
This is
exactly.
a Christian based.
no, it's
So
fine.
I'm not. Never mind. We're just gonna keep on going, man.
Yeah, no,
just teasing.
No, it's all it's interesting stuff, it's yeah. But,
It is, man.
So those
It is.
but those were some of my good
That's pretty
memories
awesome.
there.
I mean, like, just I'd like to get that back end story and like those influences of like being 10 years old or being a kid, being in
Mm-hmm.
Nepal, like the influences of like being around people that don't speak your language, because most kids don't get that experience, right?
Right.
Like most kids aren't getting that experience.
Yeah.
So
And we saw like that was a good point. Sorry for cutting you off.
no,
but like
go ahead.
poverty,
Yeah,
it was
seeing-
everywhere,
Yeah.
and there were no malls. No, there was
Yeah.
like one store where you could find like imported goods from like India,
Mm-hmm.
and you couldn't find a beef, because they don't eat
A lot
beef.
of them are plant based over.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and cows are sacred animals, so you can't
That's
slaughter
right.
them.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
all the hot dogs were chicken.
Yeah.
Stuff like
Yeah.
that. So, and having that perspective, and then moving to like a first world country where everything is working smoothly, and like, they have good industries and stuff like that.
Well, yeah,
it was
I
like
mean-
that was mind boggling. Like,
yeah.
and
I mean, I don't know. I've never been to Sweden, but I mean, notoriously they are known for everything's working pretty well
exactly,
over there.
yeah,
Like they got to figure it out.
yeah.
Out of everybody in the world, they're kind of like known as being the top, one of the top coolest,
Right.
well-oiled countries. I
Yeah,
guess.
exactly. They have are known for a well-working bureaucracy, although they have their troubles
yeah,
as well, like everybody does.
I think anywhere there's people, there's
exactly.
trouble.
Any human system has
There's a
has
person
flaws.
there. There's trouble.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
No.
So you moved back from there when you were 11.
I think it was 10. Yeah.
So you
somewhere
moved in there, and so your dad was a surgeon in Sweden as well, and he would do these missions for a time just to like take his services to help people. Like the opportunity came,
Yeah.
and it's something that he felt he wanted to do as a man, as to give back, right, and
Yep.
just serve God for
Exactly.
these people. And
I mean, he felt called to do this, and I think like pretty early on in my dad's and my mom's relationship, he like made that known to her, like this is what I'm gonna do with my life,
Yeah.
So, and he still goes back to Nepal. I think he's actually there right now still.
Oh, really?
He goes like every year for like
bit.
6 to 8 weeks.
oh, nice.
And he still helps out at the hospital some, but yeah, and then we moved to Sweden. Grew up in a totally different world.
Yeah.
I felt like a stranger there. It
Yeah.
was like my home, my passport country, but it was so weird. It's like,
yeah, I would imagine your perspective being quite different from, kids that are super privileged, right? I think about like, man, I definitely needed to be taken to a place like that as a kid because I was just a spoiled brat, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
not that my parents tried to spoil me, but I just lived in a middle class family that did well, and just thought, like
That's the
whatever,
world,
like
Yeah.
like I was a brat, like, and didn't have like really that reference out there that like how people suffer. I mean, you'd see kids in our school that obviously weren't doing as well, right? But we made fun of them. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like a lot of times, like, And that, like, I regret a lot of that. I wish I had more of the cognizance or leadership to understand, like, people don't all have the same availabilities and like the same opportunities. And I really do believe that. Like, people say like things of the nature like, oh, well, if you're alive, basically you can change your life. And it's not that simple, especially as a child. Like,
Yeah.
you're kind of stuck in what you're born into for some time at least, and like, I think my parents did the best they could, but there's definitely some things that I could have been explained to better about how I view and think of others,
Yeah.
because I definitely thought I was, better than other kids, you know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like,
And as
and
a kid, you have,
you
you
just,
only know what you've been
yeah,
presented,
yeah. And it's just,
and
I feel like, unfortunately, it is natural in human behavior to do that to others. Like, if you can,
oh yeah,
until you get humbled, or whatever the
exactly.
case is. And
Or it happens to yourself.
yeah,
Yeah.
God has humbled me, or yeah, and it's happened to me, right? Where I'm like not the cool kid or whatever,
Right.
do something that's whatever, and so um, yeah, I look back now and I'll have a lot of knowledge to pass on to my children or kids that I'm around, if I'm ever mentoring or helping teach young kids, there's definitely some things there that I wasn't told or taught as a kid that I think are helpful. But like having that experience you did in Nepal, like that's just gonna change the way you view the world,
For sure.
And
Yeah.
so that's it's really a unique, cool experience, man, being in like such a amazing place, even with the poverty. I think that you probably experienced the kids there were really happy, right? A lot of
Yeah.
them, like
At least from what I could see,
what you could, right?
there's only so much you can see,
Yeah.
but it's like what you something you could take away is like having all these like material things did not necessarily like result in increased happiness or value in life,
Yeah.
it can make things easier, but like people struggle with in varying degrees, but really with the same things all over the world. They ask the same kind of questions, like um, about life and their family, like how to raise your kids, and uh, who is God and how do we know Him and all those things,
Yeah.
like
Yeah. It's a good point.
yeah, and so so it's good to see like the people that live in like a different part of the world in a very different like context,
Yeah.
are still very much human, just like me,
Right.
it's hard to. I saw it in like a lot of friends who uh, had not been outside of Sweden. That like how other people lived, and kind of what you say, like what cards are being dealt to them at their birth, uh, and and you have to learn to play your hand,
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
and so to speak, metaphorically
Yeah.
speaking.
Yeah. Some hands are really hard to play.
They are.
Yeah. And then some hands are like, what?
Exactly. But a lot of times it comes down to also, it's not the only thing, but how to play it.
Yeah,
You can have
exactly.
a
You
really
can get a
good
great hand and
and play it poorly.
play it poorly.
Yeah.
Yep. Exactly. So, all right. So you guys moved back to Sweden. You finish out high school and everything there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And did you go to a normal high school?
So the way that high schools work in Sweden,
Yeah.
you kind of apply for a type of major in high school. So like an emphasis and study.
Really early.
So
You're
basically,
already focusing, huh?
yeah. So
Yeah.
so it would be 10th to 12th grade,
Mm-hmm.
and Some are very general, but basically it kind of like funnels you into which track you will go down in university. So you can change it later on, but basically that's kind of when you're starting to narrow down your academic options, or like
Yeah,
yeah,
like
they're
career
like shaping
fields.
yourself,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
So I went. I was really interested in history at the time. That was like my favorite subject, and I thought that I would be like a history teacher or professor or something. So I chose this program that we did a lot of like social studies, and because it provided the highest levels of history classes that were available. So so I did that, and found out my senior year we did like one history project the entire year. So it basically was supposed to mimic like a university level essay, and it was not quite that advanced.
Yeah.
But basically, you like had a thesis, and like you chose a very narrow subject area, and then you got together with a group of your classmates, and you tore apart each other's essays basically as like a
Yeah.
critiquing group, you know, because
Yeah.
that's what you do in the academic field.
Make
Yes.
sure you're talking more
Oh,
into the
sorry.
mic
There
too.
we go.
Just your yeah.
To the side.
Yeah.
I want to have like a clear view.
Yeah,
You
you
know?
can move it too.
Oh,
Move it
okay.
however you want to.
Nice.
Yeah.
You
Just
can
want
tell
to
it's
make
my
sure it's
first time.
coming through
Yeah.
clear. Yeah. Yeah.
So in that project, I was like, this is actually not what I want to do.
Yeah.
So because to me, it was like you become expert at a very like narrow field, and you become like the one expert in the world on that. Sure, but I like the grand view of history, you know. And so I was like, this is probably not for me. On the other hand, when I was 16, that was the first time I encountered someone from MEF. So they have like an office in Sweden, and they
Oh,
do,
really?
yeah. So they help more with like the with resources. So they do fundraising. They recruit people for different positions and stuff. So my interaction with them was really short. I basically thought it's like, oh, this looks pretty interesting. So I asked them how to become a pilot, and becoming a pilot is not super straightforward, which I discovered right there. And then I can't remember what he said, but I was like, oh, that sounds pretty cumbersome. So I kind of left and didn't really
Yeah.
think about that
Yeah.
very much more. But also in my senior year in high school, or upper secondary, technically, but same thing really. We had a social studies class, and we were diving like pretty deep into some like research projects and or different like themes. And my class researched a lot about like child soldiers and like African conflicts. So we read a lot about Congo, the Democratic Republic of Congo, and I was like really taken away by how dark, like so much evil going on. You know, they like recruit, like a recruiting method to recruit like child soldiers is that you raid a village, you give this little boy a gun, and then you make him kill his parents. You know, and then he has nothing to return to.
He's so broken.
And like, and then the people who you know, forced him essentially or to do this, now they become his family.
Yeah,
you know?
and they hop him on drugs and
You know, and who knows what, and they commit like crazy atrocities, which puts them further away from society because no one will accept them back now. Once they've done this. And it was just like, it was really heartbreaking, and I was not alone in feeling that way in my class, but you know, people were like, well, what can we do? And I don't remember saying this, but after I started like going to school here in the States to do this, I visited Sweden and met up with a high school friend, and he said, like you talked about this in high school, that you might be doing this, or like that you would like to. And I was like, I have actually no memory of that. But so even then, like I think like God was like working in me
some
to like
signs, like you see in the MAF office,
Yeah.
talking to him.
Right.
And then like it's like night at that moment, but then you study the Congo in high school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's a ton of stuff that we could talk about. We could talk for 2 hours just about Congo and like what's going on there. But and I'm sure we'll talk about it some more. But
Yeah, we will.
yeah, so that was kind of with me. And then I noticed that my schooling in or the type of major basically that I was put through or that I chose, in high school, what we did was like we criticized sources like all the time, like articles, like or historical documents. Like, okay, how can we know that this is true? Which parts of it is true? Is there bias here? Like, how long after the event was this written down? Was it written by a first hand eyewitness, or is it passed down? So all those different criterias, and I was like, my mind is kind of like I'm critical of everything right now, and even in my faith, like with Jesus and God, and so I really struggled with that, and so I was like, okay, before I jump into like university or job or whatever, I really had to give like the God a chance to teach me as well. So I went to a Bible school. And
in Sweden?
In Sweden, yeah. Okay. This is an international one. So there were students from like North America and like parts of Europe. I was like there were three other Swedes there out of like 60 students or something. And I really struggled through these like questions of like, how can you know that the Bible is true?
Yeah.
And
good questions.
And it gave me like an opportunity to explore that and like and to be like brutally like honest, like because the teachers were very gracious in these things, and there were like things like that really bugged me whenever there was like music connected to a message. I felt like I was emotionally manipulated in that, and I was like, I do not want this to be like an emotional ride. I want to know God. If he's real, I want to know him for what he is. I don't want this like emotional thing. So I struggle with that a lot, and during that like program, so I was in like a special program in that school. We're a team of like 7 students, and basically it was like an outdoor leadership type of course. So out of that year, we spent like almost 2 months in the outdoors total, and basically they like challenged us physically, mentally, like as a team, and put us through like a ton of different challenges.
So wait, they had you out living outdoors in the wild for like 2 months?
Not 2 months straight, no, but okay. But like they would take us on a pretty extensive like hiking. They introduced things like
you're out there for a couple days at a time.
Exactly. But then we would wake up one morning and our instructors are not there.
Awesome.
And they're like, all right, what do we do? So like, they let a little like instructions like, okay, your next objective is like these coordinates.
That's sweet.
And we have to like get there. And they were like, oh yeah, by the way, you cannot use any roads. So we were like, okay, we have to get there by navigating like through the woods. And
This is a cool, I want to say, bad,
yeah. No, I
Bible's
got you.
cool,
Yeah,
but
exactly.
it sounds cool, man.
It was like extremely challenging, and we
Yeah.
were like out in like some pretty crazy weather.
Yeah.
But our instructors did not like. We had a cell phone, so we could like call them in if like someone broke a leg or something like that.
Of course,
But
yeah.
but it was really awesome because throughout that year, like I had been in scouts like all my life, and my dad had taken us on like outdoor trips.
You guys have
and stuff
Boy
like
Scouts over there?
It's co-ed scout. We just call it scouts. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But
We probably got it from you, actually, is what really happened
I
somewhere.
think the
Scouts
original
probably come
scout
from.
movements, I think, was British.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, it's kind of the same thing.
Okay, cool.
And but we were outside a lot and
Yeah.
got exposed to like navigating and like how to make a fire and stuff like that. So I was really comfortable because it was my woods,
Yeah. Yeah,
The others were from different countries, so so I had like that advantage, and I was like really excited to like show that to them. That not my advantage, but introduce the Swedish like wilderness to them.
Yeah, and it is an advantage for sure.
Yeah,
I mean, it's your.
But I wanted to share that with them.
Right.
So I think I adapted to that environment like more naturally than some, because some of them came in with like no outdoor experience at all. So it was.
So you kind of probably ended up being more one of the leaders in your group, right?
I was really quiet, so I was
okay.
like, my instructors told me like, you got to speak up more. You know stuff. You can help your teammates.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I don't want to.
You don't want to assume the position of leadership.
Yeah, that and like and I was like, they're learning.
Yeah. Let them learn without your.
But they're like,
influence.
hey, you have like gifts to contribute with.
Yeah.
Like, learn how to do that. And so that was a big challenge for me. But we all, even though I had those advantages, there was on one trip when I was like, I got dehydrated and my like legs stopped working, and it was the interesting thing. Like all of us, there was like one girl from the Northwest Territories in Canada. She was like, she had no problems at all.
Yeah.
Until like one trip when she had like some stomach aches, and like it was like, we were like, should we call this in? What is this? So we all had this experience of being like the weakest one in the group.
Yeah.
And extremely humbling. And we had to like carry each other, through those experiences. We were like, we don't know where the end objective of this day is. We gotta like, our instructors know, but they didn't tell us, know. And there were times when they left us without food, to see
it's
what
hardcore, man.
Yeah, it was crazy, and it was one time we got really stuck in bad weather.
It's like 40 days, 40 nights in the desert.
Yeah, no, we didn't have that long trips, but the most exhausting trip, and was way north in Sweden, basically in like Arctic winter conditions, and we were on like telemark skis. We were gonna set up like a little base camp for a week, and we carried all our stuff out there, food and everything. And on our way up, like the weather started getting like worse and worse. The wind started picking up, and we started struggling more and more with like, we're getting tired, and the wind started picking up to the point where you can't like take your glove off to grab a snack,
You'll get a little frostbite or something real quick. Yeah.
And so our instructors, like, they made the call like, okay, let's go down. So we were going up in this valley, and then it's like, let's go down back to a cabin that we left, like a mountain cabin. It's like a storm shelter, essentially.
Yeah.
And then we'll go up here tomorrow, because even if we make it there, we have to set up camp.
Yeah.
It's going to be miserable.
It's too cold.
Yeah.
Somebody could get frostbite,
Exactly.
frostnip at the best case scenario.
Yeah.
within minutes.
Yeah,
I mean,
and
when it's
no
that cold,
no helicopter
yeah.
could come and get us in that
No.
weather, you know. So so the decision was made to go back down, and by this time we couldn't distinguish the mountains from the
Yeah,
sky.
visibility's
It like started
bad.
like coming.
Yeah, you're in a white room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was like strapped into this sled that we carried like 200 pounds of our supplies.
Right. You're pulling a sled behind you that's
Yep.
strapped to you, basically. Yeah.
And then we had our backpacks on top of
Right.
that. And as I was following these two guys, and they were maybe like 30, 40 feet in front of me, and they just had like a compass bearing. There were no landmarks to follow, because we couldn't see.
Yeah.
So we were going like down this hill, and it was like pretty gentle, so it was not like we're gonna
Where you
fall
could
off,
see.
Yeah. but if you've never
Yeah.
been in that environment where you're like spatial orientation, like it messes
Yeah.
with you.
Oh, it messes
You
with you.
don't know
bad.
what's like up and down.
I've had that happen
Yeah.
to me, man, on a mountain. Yeah,
It's crazy.
Scary.
Yeah. And all, as the wind picked up, those guys started like disappearing.
Yep. Visibility's crap.
And then
Can't.
we had to start like leaning against the wind, to stay upright. And all of a sudden, like this huge gust came, and like your hands disappeared in front of you, and you're like, this is like complete whiteout.
Oh man.
And it lasted for a few seconds. Like some of our team, like, fell over, completely disoriented for those moments, And so we like had to help them up, and I don't know, I can't remember exactly how they felt, but I mean, it was kind of scary,
Oh, those times
naturally.
are super scary.
But
Everybody's scared.
yeah, but
No doubt.
For whatever reason, I felt the calmest that I've
Yeah.
ever been in my life.
Yeah.
And I was like, because I kept like thinking to myself, like, this is like God in his like garden. He made like all of this, and he's like holding me right now. And it's like, I'll take you through this, And
So the intensity of it was scary, but you also felt calmness because you felt God was with you at the same time.
and I was going through like some my first like heartbreak as well. I liked this girl that was on that team, and then there was like mutual interest, but then like she said no, and I had a very hard time with that, and
Yeah.
maybe like I had a hard time than I should have, but it was still there.
Hey man,
And,
the heart's a tricky thing, you know.
so, but basically, like there was a time when I thought like, oh, here's someone that I really like, and I had never experienced that before. That
Quite
like
felt that way before.
yeah,
right?
and especially with someone else liking like that, it's reciprocated. And when that kind of fell apart, like my internal world like shook, right?
Yeah,
and
it's hard.
And this experience in the mountains in the snow was like God telling me like, I know you, and
kind of a Lieutenant Dan moment. No, Lieutenant Dan goes
yeah,
off.
kind of. Yeah.
You know,
No,
like,
actually, when I
yeah.
watched that movie after that, I was like, I know exactly what
Okay,
Lieutenant
cool.
Dan is
Yeah,
like
I love that.
feeling
I
right
love
now.
that scene.
Yeah,
man. I love
and
that
it-
scene.
And yeah, when he's up in the mast, and
Yeah.
like, is this all you can do? Yeah,
All you have.
Is all you- yeah, I didn't challenge God in that way. There
no,
it was
I was
but-
going to an extreme, but
Yeah.
kind of trying. You know, that's why there's relativity in that scene to a lot of people. Is it's how they really feel inside when
absolutely.
a storm in your life is happening. It's not actually a physical storm most of the time, but some kind of storm.
Yeah,
you know?
but that's
Yeah.
like that's one of the beautiful things with God, that like you cry out to him and he will find you in that storm. It's like it's such a beautiful thing, and like I'm just so happy I was given that experience, because
Yeah.
then from that experience on, I was like, I want to live my life not to be some like, I don't know, like rich or like intellectual whiz, in history or whatever. Like,
Yeah.
I want to be as close to God as I can. Like that was like the the best experience of my life. Like nothing can beat this. And that's when my thoughts like really started changing towards like, how do I live a lifestyle that where I get to be with him all the time, you know? And so I ended up staying at that Bible school for another year. I helped out like on the maintenance side, and I got to help instruct now for that same like outdoor program.
Yeah.
Learned a ton.
Oh yeah.
About
awesome.
leadership in hard ways. Like I did a lot of mistakes, but it was good growth for me. And it was really during that year that I started pursuing like, okay, what do I use my talents for? Like my passion, my past, you know, like where is God directing me? And excuse me. So then like, you know, I thought about the Congo and then like mission aviation. And then so I talked with people about it, and I ended up calling like the Swedish office, super nervous, talking, and it's like, hey, like where can I get training? You know, so I just like started exploring. The director of that Bible school, he studied at Moody Bible Institute in Chicago. Probably like I can't remember how long ago, but so he told me like, hey, Moody Aviation or Moody Bible Institute has a campus, Moody Aviation. They're one of the best schools in the world for this kind of thing.
Like mission aviation.
Yeah, that's like their specialty. Yeah. And it turns out that is in Spokane. So I applied to that.
It's in Spokane?
It's in Spokane, yeah.
Oh, I thought it was like in Seattle or something that you went to.
It's out of Phelps Field.
Out of Phelps.
Yep.
Whoa.
And basically they train people there to be...
Wild.
Yeah. Right?
Oh, cool.
Not a lot of people know about it.
I thought for some reason you were like, that makes a lot of sense though, because I mean, you've been here. I never heard about you living in Seattle. So yeah. Okay.
No, they, it's very unique for Spokane.
That's cool.
And so, I mean, my graduating class were like, I think 12 guys.
Really?
I think like all but 2, either... maybe 3 are either abroad in some like third world country.
Yeah.
There's some different organizations, and they're flying out to people that have basically like zero communication with the outside world, and to bring them life-saving supplies. Obviously, we believe that like the greatest hope that you can get is the word of God. So we offer that to them as well. We don't force it on them. A lot of times these people ask us to come, and like they want to know God because they've heard it from someone else. And you got to understand that these people like live in like crazy like spiritual darkness. Like there's a movie called Ends of the Earth that MEF produced, and it describes how they like reached this this village in Indonesia, and one of their practices before they were Christian was when someone would get sick, they believed that women had the ability to like shapeshift into evil spirits. So the men would get together and like seek out an oracle basically, and so they would figure out what woman was the cause of the sickness, and then they would go and kill her. And they were like, we actually do not want to live like this, you know? So
the people,
they lived in like complete fear of like spirits and that like spiritual entity, and they're like, we want deliverance from this, and they were like, we've heard about this other God, you know. And they were like, sure, we will come and tell you about it. And and this process takes a long time. Usually these missionaries live with this tribe for decades to know them, like learn the language, and they translate the Bible for them into their language. And these are people that do not have a written language at all.
Yeah.
So it helps them develop in that sense as well, and get education, and and we sometimes we get critique by people that we're like pushing our like worldview or whatever on like others,
Well,
and
yeah.
but the thing is like they're asking us to explain these things, and like
Yeah. When you're invited,
Yeah.
right? I think that's a different precept than like what Christianity does have as far as some of its history where it's been
Exactly.
forceful in making people follow God,
Yeah.
follow Jesus. And if you don't, there's a problem, right?
Exactly.
Like
Yeah.
you're a heathen, you're going to hell because of it, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the progression of Christianity as a whole is nowhere near that way like it used to be. You know, it's not that same way. And I think from what I've seen from people that are truly involved in missionary work, they from the ones that I believe in, that's why I support you and that's why I'm having you on, is I know you're coming from a genuine place. It's not a manipulative place. It's not a place of like, oh, these people are heathens that
Right.
need to believe in Jesus.
we gotta
You
change
know what I
them, you
mean?
know?
Like it's
Yeah.
because you truly believe Jesus is a good thing for you and others, and you want to help people. I think.
And then like if they say no, they can.
Yeah,
You know,
it's not like a forceful
Yeah.
nature that I see with you and what I've seen with the research I've done on this MAF Mission Aviation Fellowship. It's like you guys are, hey, look, we're trying to help people, and we're going to spread the word of God too if they want to hear it.
Yeah.
And
you're
provide the resources to spread the word as well, like
Yeah.
whether that's Bibles or helping people read. And I think those things are good. Like I think tribes should maintain their heritage, but if they're like all living in a state of fear of like, oh man, who's gonna get sick next because of this weird thing we're doing and we're killing people, like
Exactly.
can we get out of this? Is there a better way? And I know Jesus has helped a lot of people. Like, you can't get away from that fact that the story of Jesus and his teachings are helpful for life.
Exactly.
You don't have to worship him necessarily, but I think that it's good to, respect and understand the teachings of Jesus. There's a lot of wisdom that came from there, and he is somebody that has lasted a long time with what he did in his life. Whether you want to call him a god or not, like that's not for me to decide. But what I'm taking is the standpoint of like you can learn from Jesus.
Right.
You can learn from Jesus. Like that's what I'm saying, right? And so I don't think anybody's really gonna. It's not gonna be I really don't see it being too negative. Like I grew up in the church, and there was a lot of negativity at the time when I was in the church. A lot of manipulation, a lot of weird stuff. Definitely like cultish vibes. So I'm like very leery about titling myself as a Christian, but I have maintained a lot of morality, ethics, and different things that I felt were good teachings from the Bible that I still use, and I still read the Bible at times because I believe there's a lot of wisdom in that book that is good for life, right?
Yeah.
But so that being said, I don't have any problem supporting you and your family going to do this because I believe, one other thing too is like Christians as a whole is like organizations that are out there trying to help the world. There's a lot of primarily Christians that are involved in that kind of work. And people can be judgmental or whatever they want to say, or you're forcing beliefs and culture on these people. And I'm sure in some aspects there is still truth to that, but and then there's aspects where I know that's not true. I know there's a lot of great, amazing Christian people that really genuinely want to share Jesus's love, right? Like the love that they feel from their relationship with Jesus. They just want to share that and help others to have that feeling too.
Exactly.
And I think that's the side that you fall on.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a good point. It's like we're all different organizations, whatever, are different in their methods, and there's some that we do not agree with their methods,
right, associate with,
and then we try to show them like maybe this is like a better like holistic way to serve people. We focus a lot on like building relationships, and it's through that we can serve and also see what needs actually exist, so that so we were serving people in a proper and honoring way, to lift them up, and because there's a lot of charity work, including like Christian mission work, that is not always super helpful in the long run. If people become like dependent on that, well, then how are they going to stand on their own feet? So now you have to stay. I don't have a great concrete example of that, but
yeah, I don't think we need to go there necessarily. But people that have grown up in the Christian world, they will have had experienced that, and that's going to be a lot of people. I mean, it just is so, unfortunately, has been intrinsic in that world, and I think it always will, because there's people involved in it.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's just what it is.
And we make mistakes too.
It's just like,
we try to learn from that and move on. And learn how to repair those relationships when we hurt people, and because exactly that's like part
Christian
of being human.
or not, you've done the same thing.
Yeah, exactly.
To somebody, you have. Like we all do it. It's just like we might not do it under the Christian guise, right? But you've done it. We all do it. Exactly. We're all guilty of that. So we can all point the finger, or you can just take accountability. And live your life by example, but you're going to make those types of mistakes where you manipulate somebody for your benefit. You know what I mean? Like, there's not any person that doesn't do that, And so, Christians aren't the problem. It's us as a whole. Like, we're all part of the problem, right?
Yeah.
At least that's my point of view. That's my point of view.
Exactly. No, I agree. Like, I think that, we live in a fallen world when we have a very... we're quick to do bad things, and it comes very easy, and it's hard to fight evil, even in yourself, and that's
Definitely.
that's why I need God, because He is good. I'm not
Gives
good
you the
of
strength,
myself. I'm like, without God, I don't even want to think of like where I would be, So, it's
That's good, man. I like that. We'll keep moving on the story though.
Yeah.
So I have a question.
Sure.
This is going to be an interesting one. I thought of this just now while we were talking. I think it's a great question. You coming from one of the most notorious, prestigious countries in the world, and coming to Spokane, Washington. What did you think when you got here, man? What were your thoughts? How rough was it, or how awesome was it? What'd you love? What'd you hate?
I came in August in 2013, and I was like, month. It's hot.
Hot. Yeah, don't get that hot in Sweden.
No.
Because you guys are kind of pretty far north up there.
Yeah, it's pretty mild.
Yeah, pretty mild.
And
like 70s in the summer, like 80s.
80.
But not 100.
Not 100. Yeah. No. That would be like, people would be like, get out of here. Yeah, but... Yeah, that was my first impression. It's hot. It's like, and
what year was this? 2008?
13.
Oh, 2013. Because we played soccer like from 2015 at least. I would guess.
It took me like a couple of years to get to know the soccer community.
Okay.
And get involved. But coming up on 10 years now, which is pretty crazy.
Wow.
So I was like, it's hot. I don't know where to go to do stuff, So the school did a good job at like introducing us to like how things work, how to get a cell phone and like and all these things. And And it was very helpful having that I've lived in a different part of the world, kind of being ready that like things will look and feel different, you know. And when you shift cultures, there's something called like culture shock,
Right.
which is like you kind of on a high for like a few months, where like are exciting and like you're eager to learn and like people are different, you know, and then then you come to like a kind of a slump, like a depression, when you're
missing
like,
home.
this kind of like sucks. Like why does this work this way, you know?
Yeah,
And it's very natural. Like
Yeah.
even people who moved within the United States, I think, have experienced that.
Oh, for sure.
And it's like, yeah. So I loved how people. It was very easy to get in touch with people. Like people will you know spark up like conversation with you like randomly. That's like you don't do that in Sweden.
Really?
Yeah, you know, you wait for the bus and you're all like 6 feet apart. So when the COVID hit and like you're supposed to like stay 6 feet apart from people,
like,
and we were
"That's-
like, we've been doing that for 2,000 years, you know.
That's funny.
Yeah, so
Wow. So Swedes aren't very
they're not initially like super warm,
kind of stay to
necessarily.
themselves a
Yeah,
bit.
but once you have a relationship established, then you
Rocks.
have it.
Yeah.
And those are people to count on.
Yeah.
So while here, it's like I struggled with like knowing who's my friend. You know,
You have a lot of people that act like they're your friends,
Yeah.
but they're not really there for you a lot
Yeah,
of times.
kind of.
Yeah.
So it was that was tricky to navigate. So you kind of learned like, okay, like this is how Americans do it, you know,
Yeah.
and there you got to look for different signs, you know, like
Yeah.
so that was tough to learn. And I'm still learning it.
Yeah.
I think. So because that's life.
How old were you when you moved here? So that would be 10 years ago.
22.
So really quite young. Wow.
Yeah. I think it was 2013. I was born in 91. Yeah, 22. And but no, I felt like really welcomed here, you know.
Yeah.
People are very curious about foreigners, or at least
Yeah.
me.
No, I think that's true in Spokane mostly. Yeah.
And you know, they like my accent.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they were curious about Sweden too.
Yeah.
What life is like there. And but yeah, I think those were some of the biggest. Oh yeah, and also it was weird not having a car for like in America. So it's
Yeah. That is weird here. It's like everybody has a
So in Sweden,
freaking
you can
car.
get around, like there's like bicycle paths everywhere, and you can you take the bus everywhere, and having a car is quite expensive. So not unless you like really needed one,
Yeah.
you had one, you know. And most families do, but
Like
here,
have one amongst everybody kind of situation more. Yeah.
But it was strange to like talk to people here, and like they didn't really know their neighbors. You know, I was like, that's kind of
Crazy.
that's crazy. Yeah. But it's like, but then like watching how not everybody, of course, but like how some people do. You know, you get in your car inside your garage, you open the garage door, you drive to work. You know, there's in some other place in town, you know, then you drive to the grocery store. So like I try to think of it as like people live in islands, you know, but you don't really interact with any space in between these islands.
Exactly.
And to me, that was pretty isolating.
It is.
And
It's hard.
Yeah.
I don't like it either, man. I've always noticed that, and I don't like it.
Yeah. And it's like, so it was kind of a different type of like coldness in a way, you know.
Yeah.
Once you were in front of someone, then it was like, oh yeah, hi, like how's it
Yeah.
going? How's the kids, you know, and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But
Right. But you're not coming to my house.
yeah, kind of, yeah, sort of.
Sometimes it'd be
all
like
depends on the person.
It depends.
like,
I'm just teasing, but yeah. Good to see you, but you're not invited for dinner. All right.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah,
But then,
those are some good insights. I always, so I think something more I want to ask on this podcast is like what people love and don't love about Spokane. And I know maybe the don't love part will cause some controversy, but I mean, these are like real topics that I think need to be talked about because we all talk about what we love and what we don't love about Spokane with our friends. Like we all do. So if you can't, I mean, like we shouldn't judge each other for our point of view of putting it out there. I don't feel, and I know people will, but that's their opinion. I think it's good to talk about it, and it's probably good for it to stir up some stuff. I kind of feel like, I'm gonna stir it up. Let's stir it up. So
let's go controversy.
That's why I'm saying for the love of the city. I don't say, I love Spokane. I say for the love of Spokane because I believe in the greater good. But there's things I don't. A person that runs a brand that represents cities and towns, like there's still things I don't love about Spokane.
Yeah.
But I'm also not too involved yet in changing things. I'm just like figuring that out and starting to try to get city chapters involved with things like that. And, talking with people like you, though you're going, to the Congo, but you're somebody that's seeking to actually be intrinsically involved in making a change, and that's important for me to have you on because yes, you've been in Spokane 10 years, you're a part of our community, and now you're going on a mission elsewhere. So you're somebody still from our community that's trying to make a difference. Yeah. And that's important. And I just want to have more individuals like yourself, and individuals that are also involved in Spokane, making changes on the podcast so I can better learn how I can get involved. Because I think that's a big calling for me that I need to get involved with. It's like, how do I be of service to help better my environment? I'm also interested in traveling, and I've looked up things, not Christian-based, but things to be like, go help elsewhere, right? Where people really need help. And I had an experience when I was in Mexico. I did this like ATV tour in the jungle, the Mayan jungle, but they have like a aspect to this. This was down in Playa del Carmen. I think it's called Playa del Carmen Buggies, if you're ever down there and you want to do this. But I'm talking to the people. Also, Alfred, if you're down in Mexico, like fun, whatever. But you take this buggy tour, but they take you to a little village out in the middle of the Mayan jungle. So on the way, you like go to a few cenotes, like you do that whole thing. You're mobbing these buggies through the jungle, but then you come to this village, and it's a very, poor village, I guess, right? I don't know how that's kind of like what I hate saying poor, but they live out in the middle of the jungle.
It's very simple.
They need help with food and stuff at times, right? And I don't know how much naturally they get and gather their own food. I don't know all those things. I was only there for maybe half an hour in the village, but they're shacks, makeshift shacks. They have a cool, beautiful school that was built by a nonprofit out there, and it's a very beautiful, colorful school. This buggy company, brings a nonprofit aspect where you go there and you can buy bags of food, and then you hand them out to the women of the village. And, that some of the young children are there too. But, all the young children I seen were having a blast. They're playing soccer, whatever, having fun, smiles, ear to ear. And, the mothers were very gracious, and, we talked to a few of the men, but, I think they kind of, there's always also that pride thing with men where, the women are more the ones that are like willing to receive this kind of help, right? And take it back to the family. Yeah. But it was like my first glimpse of something that I know I've been wanting to get involved with. And, this is more like a tourist thing, you know? And so, you kind of feel a little weird because it's like, it going into it. It's not like they surprise you with this. Like it's a part of the thing, and they let you know that. And but like seeing the smiles of just helping these people. Cause like the women, they genuinely were like very happy that another round of tourists are coming through, right? Giving them food because we have money and they don't have the resources like that. And so it was like a mind opener for me, because that was like the first time being in a really remote village that was like way out in the middle of nowhere, and these people live off very little,
Exactly.
and it was really cool. It touched me, and since then it's like, all right, I gotta figure out more ways that I can get city chapters involved, and other things.
It's wise to be slow. So may I spark a little bit of controversy?
Yeah,
Like I said,
yes, please do.
So I read a book called Toxic Charity, and it basically talks about like how to do charity well, and some examples of like how it's done poorly. And I thought of like one story when you told about like handing out rice and why you could interact with the women but not with the men very much.
Yeah.
So in this book, it describes how they did like a Christmas gift giveaway to families who could not afford getting gifts, So they came to these houses and they like gave gifts to the kids and the family and stuff. But the dads were never there.
Yeah.
And because it was like, and they were like, why? Like the dads came when they left, and for the dads, it was such a shameful thing that it's like they could not afford presents for their own family for them to have like a good Christmas time, They had to rely on these other people, so the author of this book, he was like, they started like changing this model, that they had this like some type of secondhand store instead, that the men could come and like volunteer, and they would like build up like credits in the store so that they can like earn these presents, and then they would bring them themselves to their families, and that was like a and then their relationships with these families just like was so much better,
way more.
So it's like and I just thought about that.
No, I love that. Move slow. That's something that I have been very leery too about, like bringing in this aspect of how to help people, because like I said, manipulation.
Yeah.
Like, oh, hey, yeah, we're a company that gives back, we're helping out. Like you see so much of this social for-profit business model that it's like you got to be very careful on how you approach that and what you want to be involved with, and like, really, are you really in the trenches too? Like just giving money is one thing, and that can be helpful.
Yeah.
But also being actually in the trenches, actually there with the people is important to me too.
Yeah.
And I've been, I'm definitely approaching it slow. And that's why I haven't started anything yet. It's like I've put the word out there on a podcast before, and maybe a few others, and people that I know close that I've talked with, like that is a part of my mission, my game plan. I just don't know where I want to go yet. Like what really do I want to be involved with? There's a lot of things that need help, but like what is going to be my calling in that world? It could be multiple different aspects, but I want to make sure obviously that it comes from an authentic, genuine place. And and that's the other thing too. Like you don't want to embarrass people that need help, right? And I think there's a lot of that goes on. Like people, like whether it's like someone on, trying to document how they give to people on the streets or whatever. Like they got their iPhone with them and they're giving something to a homeless person. Like, that homeless person really doesn't want to be on camera, man.
Exactly.
Like, you know what I mean? So there's a lot of that. Like I think you got to, for me, it's like, you don't have to put everything out there for people to see. It happened. That's all that matters.
Yeah.
You gave and you were there for that person. That's all that matters. You don't need to be like, hey, look, look at what I'm doing for the world. Like, I think there's a lot of negativity that can come with that aspect of you trying to show people that you are helping people,
Exactly.
so
Yeah. It comes back to your
it's
heart and like
yeah,
what your intent is, and like if you
yeah,
show it off too much, then people will be like, what are you
yeah.
actually
What's
doing?
your real intention here?
Yeah.
And
And
yeah,
um no, that's good. I think yeah, like I want to say like help to bring help to someone is like first of all it's personal. I
hmm,
think it's good to be
right.
like have your own what do you call it? Um investment, like to be
Hmm.
invested. And um what do you call it? Skin in the game. Is
Skin in
that
the game.
it's one of those American idioms that I struggle with before. It's like yes, I'm learning, how to talk. That's good.
Yeah.
But um
At the same time, you got to let people know what you're doing too.
exactly.
And
Yeah.
and there's that part too. You got to let people know what you're doing. That's why you're on here.
Yeah.
It's like to be able to share with people what you're doing.
Yeah.
And people, you got to do that too. So that balance is sensitive, I think.
Exactly.
And
So yeah, I can touch on that a little bit. So basically, what we're doing now so we sign up with MEF, and what we're doing now is that we're building like a team that will support us in what we're doing. Um, and that's on multiple aspects. Like obviously, like we need to reach like a financial goal to go, but we also need other help. I mean, we believe in the power of prayer, so we need people to pray for us, and um, but with that, what we do to communicate back is we send out like reports, basically like this is what we were involved in. These are the things that we're seeing happening in Congo, and this is how we're like helping people. So it is like a way of accountability. What you're talking about, like
yeah.
we don't want to just be entrusted with a ton of money or whatever, and then not report back.
Yeah.
It's like we want to know like from you, you're one of our supporters now, which we're super thankful for and thrilled about.
Yeah.
And then and you're like, well, I'll contribute to your financial goals, but then like you're like, well, I want to help you spread this to other people, so that's like one way to help us out,
Yeah.
and
Definitely, man.
yeah, so that's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I just figured having you on, like for the people that just follow my podcast, it's not a huge following, but we're getting there and we're still early on and starting this thing. But
Yeah,
I just figure, who knows who could by chance listen,
exactly.
right? And
Yeah.
then it's also a good way for you to share with people you won't be able to sit down with personally, like maybe it's a person but like you're not able to, you know, whatever. It's a good way for somebody to be able to hear more about what you're doing. I guess this is a good time to transition more into MAF and what you're doing,
Yeah.
and so
Sure.
because I know that's the important part of why we had you on. One question is though on the Moody Aviation School, how long was that course
It's a
program?
5-year program.
5 years. Okay.
So you do like first a 1 year of gen ed. So you get a bachelor's degree in science, and so gen ed stuff. You do some like Bible courses, and then you do. Now they've changed it a little bit, but basically it's like 2 years of mechanic school. So you get a what they call an airframe and power plant mechanics license, so you can work on the airplane.
Right.
And then 2 years of either more maintenance if you want to be a maintenance specialist,
Yeah.
or if you want to be a flight specialist, you do 2 years of flight school. So you get
Yeah.
your private license, commercial, and instrument rating there. And it's a tough program. Like
Yeah.
we have enough, when you graduate, you have enough credits that you would have had like a master's or something like that. I don't really know.
Yeah.
But
It's
we
a thorough program.
it is, yeah. We averaged like, so full-time student, it was like 13 credits, I think. We averaged between like 18 and 22 per semester. So it was tough. And but yeah, it was good. And then just to finish like that story till now. Met my wife in 2016. We got married in 2018, same year I graduated, and basically when I met her, it was like if we are to get married, I was pretty straightforward. Like I knew,
like your dad was with your mom.
yeah, kind of. It's like,
Yeah,
this is like
this is
the
what I'm
deal
doing.
breaker. Yeah, I'm doing this.
What I've done
If
5 years.
if you
want to
do it, if you want to do it with me, let's see if we can work. If we're fit, and if we're a good match, and she and oh yeah, a little bit about her story too. So she had a kind of a parallel story to mine. I wish she could be here to talk about it as well. But she so she had a calling to be a missionary, and she hopefully I don't mess her title up, but basically she's a teacher as a second language. And you can teach that pretty much anywhere. But she when she went to college, there was like a missions conference, and there was they saw a video of a missionary who had lived in Congo for a very long time. Her name was Helen Rosevear, and she had kind of been adopted into as Congolese. I think she's English, maybe, I can't remember. Sorry if I might have messed it up. Maybe she's Irish and I totally insulted her. But you can clip this out of the podcast. But no. So she lived there, and the one of the reasons why they adopted her in was because she suffered with them. So she was raped multiple times, and through that, it opened up doors for her to be heavily involved in the community as a missionary to talk about the love that is offered by Jesus. And also they founded a hospital there, where she was very involved in that. And that hospital is right next to an MEF base in Congo that originally was the base that we were going to be sent to. So just that is pretty cool. That was such a strong sense of calling for her. And now when we got this assignment just last year that we're going to East Congo, or the eastern part of the DRC, and their base is right next to this hospital that Helen Rosevear helped
establish, basically.
Exactly. So and then also with her teaching background, so she, after teaching English, she taught in Japan for a while, and then she taught here
for refugees
here in Spokane. And but she was if we go out to a country, I don't want to teach them English. I want to teach them how to read and write in their own language. And just so when we joined MEF, we got our assignment there and then, and we were really excited about Congo. And then just a month afterwards, we heard that that team that we're gonna join, they started a literacy course in Swahili for mostly women who had fled from their villages and now live outside of Bunia, the town that we will be living in, as internally displaced people, basically refugees. They're not called refugees because they haven't crossed an international border, but it's the same thing. And so they started this 6-month school for them. And we were well, this is perfect. Her talents and gifts are coming into play at the same time. So, so we were excited about that. And it just seemed to be these things that God is weaving together in our stories, and hopefully we can
So when
use
when
these
you
things.
gave her the ultimatum, she's like, "Well, that's actually your ultimatum."
Yeah.
So I guess we're gonna be all right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Because I'm going.
She was
No.
yeah.
Are you? Yeah.
Yeah, are you ready?
Well, I had a question,
Yeah.
which was kind of tied into Jewel, your wife. I was like, so she served on previous missions, right? And has been in Japan and did some other places like in Israel, I think. And like,
She
was
was in like an intern.
yeah,
It
some
was
kind
like
of,
it was one of those like trips to open your perspectives.
yeah.
So it's very like kind of short term in various places.
But
Yeah, Israel was
she's
one.
been in a few places
Yeah.
around the world. And
Yeah.
so I was like, do you feel God has brought you two together to serve in the DRC? And you've kind of already touched on that. I mean,
Yeah.
it seems like there's so many signals from God that are like showing you both like, and now have joined your life together to go do
Right.
this mission.
Yeah.
It's pretty wild. And
Yeah.
that's like,
We do
seems
feel that
very
way.
special, you know?
It is.
Yeah.
So yeah, just like so, what we didn't know about her, her and my like experiences with like, getting to know the Congo, in 10 years ago, we didn't know those things about each other until after we got our assignment. So we didn't even like take those things into account really.
Oh, yeah.
So
That's interesting.
so they in our training and stuff, they encouraged us to like learn to tell your story, like how you came to this point. So we were like telling it to each other, and we were like, wait, we have like two very parallel stories.
All right, let's get into MAF.
Sure.
And so once again, that's Mission Aviation Fellowship, also known as MAF.
But no, we haven't been there yet.
Yeah. So I know you haven't been, but I know you've been doing your research. What are some of the issues and problems that are happening in the Congo? What are some of the major conflicts? Yeah, I know there's a lot going on there. It's kind of notorious for being known for a lot going on there.
Yeah.
But I don't know much, other than what you've shared and a little bit of what I've seen from like a movie and stuff.
Exactly. Yeah.
I've seen a child soldier movie, and I've read a book about child soldiers too. And like you said, when you were in high school, I was like, man, it's like, what do you do? Like, and I didn't take the path you did, but
Right.
I have some awareness of how bad it can be over there.
Yeah.
So yeah, just share with us like what more of like your calling there, and like why you feel you need to go there, what's happening there, and why you feel God has taken you there.
I think one of the first like draws back in like those high school days was to help those who are forgotten and suffering. Those were like the two things, and that was mainly why I was like, Congo. The Congolese, like if you watch documentaries, and like they will say like we're a suffering people. If we talk about like the eastern half of the country, there's about like 120, what we know, like armed groups that are involved in this conflict. Some
And
of
they're
them,
all separate groups with their own agenda.
yeah, a lot of them are like local, like militias, just trying to defend themselves, that they've established. But there's all sorts.
And these are kind of like tribal factors almost, or
Some, yeah. It's so complicated. You have the whole spectrum, and many of them are extremely violent, kidnap people, molest people, or like rape people. They have what they call a rape warfare, where they specifically target women, and really, it obviously like destroys the woman targeted, but it also destroys the family. It destroys any type of like opportunities for this woman to find a husband,
or if she has one,
he will
leave her.
probably leave.
Yeah.
Yep. and so she's left on her own, and it destroys communities,
Just
and
destroys the community
yeah,
fabric.
and
Just
that really
rips it
is
apart.
what these groups are after,
Yeah.
because then they can establish their own dominance, really. So it's like deeply tragic, and on top of that, like they have ill-maintained roads. It's basically a part of the world that is regressing in development. Like the roads are getting worse. Like
Yeah.
there's communities that are getting more isolated, like from year to year, and very few people care about them or even know that they are there.
Yeah.
Despite all this, is that like they sit on massive treasures. There's like gold, diamonds. There's huge reserves of like natural resources, is like coltan and the cobalt that we use in like our electrical equipment. So it's like 70% of all the cobalt in the world comes from Congo, and so they should, by all these like natural resources, they should be like one of the richest countries in the world.
Yeah.
But through like the conflict and difficult to like establish any like
Industry.
industry or structure, these source resources are like sucked out of the country, transported somewhere else, and other people make profit of it. So the people living next to these mines are extremely poor,
Yeah.
and it's the only paved road in the town is the road that goes from the mine to the airport, and that's where they like ship this stuff away. So it's
So there's like a
they
lot of I don't know, lack of a better word, but it's like extortion almost, like
yeah
in the well, maybe extortion is not the right word, but let's just say there's big mining companies that are getting resources from there, and they're not
Yeah.
building up the industry or the
communities around
economy
them.
there.
Yeah.
They're taking it. They have their agreements with whoever to do whatever they want to do there, and they're paying those people
Yep.
off. But those people are getting rich. None of the people there are getting rich.
Yeah.
And they're just,
And they're like for-profit companies,
yeah,
so they do
yeah.
not have any.
They don't care about the people. Just
Exactly.
like big corporations, we all know, like they don't care about the people.
Yep.
I mean, not every big corporation, but most of them, especially ones in the natural resources game. Like,
Exactly. Yeah.
they're notorious for doing whatever they got to do to get whatever they want.
Yeah. And I don't like mean to like stir up like too much like controversy, but these are just like
Yeah.
the facts.
This is what's going on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And a lot of these minerals are used in our electronics. So basically, like I would say almost every person in the world who has owned an electronic device has a piece of Congo in them,
Yeah,
or like
we
in
talk
the, in the
about blood
device.
diamonds, right? But
Exactly.
it's kind of like
You should talk about
yeah.
blood,
Like cobalt or whatever you want to
Yeah.
call it. Yeah,
Yeah.
blood electronics, whatever.
And this is what
yeah.
they use for build your batteries for electrical vehicles and stuff like that. So
Is there a lot of lithium there too?
not that I know of, but now they use cobalt a lot
For sure.
in batteries. So it's like a vital component to build this like new infrastructure that we're striving for in the West, and it's causing like massive humanitarian disasters in places like Congo.
Right.
And these companies also do not care about the environment.
And I'm sure it's terrible for the waters.
Oh yeah,
and
there's
like,
rivers that are utterly poisoned. There's no fish in some of these waters anymore.
And that's how
farmland
a lot of
is
them
getting
probably lived.
destroyed.
Yeah.
And they're seeing massive amounts of like birth defects now from
I was
kids.
gonna say off the water and
Yeah, so they're still like researching about this. If you want to know more about that, like there's documentaries that are free on YouTube where they're like kind of highlighting these things. I encourage anyone to look into it, because I don't like instilling like guilt and like, oh, if you own like a computer that
Yeah, yeah.
that's not the point.
Yeah.
But we ought to be aware
Yeah,
of like
no, that's good. That's
how
good.
these things work.
And you don't want to misspeak, and I respect that, because it's like, there's a lot going on over there. It'd be hard to be an expert in all these different things that you've mentioned that are,
exactly
happenings over there. So,
so we're hoping for a change. We
Yeah.
if people get aware of it, like the problem is that these companies have said that they've like changed, but then it turns out that they haven't.
No, yeah.
And so it's very convoluted. It's very deep.
Yeah.
A
lot of work to be done over there.
Yeah, exactly.
A lot of help needed.
So we like so the role that like we play in the Congo, so the roads are like extremely bad. There's no like infrastructure of communication to speak of in large parts of the country, and then due to the ongoing conflicts, it's very dangerous to travel by road. There's some really good documentaries that are free on YouTube about like truck drivers in the Congo, like trying to traverse these like mud roads. It's the highway, and then like they're stuck in like a mud puddle, and
it's a jungle road. Right?
And it's not the trucks that some of them use are like, no, it's like an 8-wheel drive, like military truck, and it's getting stuck, So they travel in teams. Like there's a driver and then there's like 5 mechanics, and their main job is to like help to dig the truck out when it gets stuck. So in certain areas to get like 50 miles can take up to like 3 weeks.
Wow. That's insane.
Yeah. So to get supplies around is a huge challenge. And then
it's dangerous.
It's dangerous. They get robbed,
Yeah.
And, one truck driver describes that like one of the most dangerous things to transport are mattresses, because
Really?
the groups, some of the groups that live out there are, they need places to sleep, so whenever there's a transport with mattresses, they like jump on it. And so especially when it comes to like immediate care, like let's say there's a medical emergency, where will they go? You can't travel like a week to the closest hospital.
Yeah.
So that's a big part that we do. There is
taking people to hospitals.
Quickly. Yeah, and then we help different like community leaders and to get to the places that need to go. A lot of them are involved in churches, to build communities and to educate people in different ways. We let's see.
I know you guys established a place for women that have been raped to get educated, and like kind of help them be reintroduced into society, and giving them skill sets to be able to have a job and do things of that nature, which is really awesome.
So you're talking about the Ponzi Hospital. You can like look up stories on their website as well. It's spelled the PANZI hospital. They tell stories of this war and the stuff that they've been part of. So this hospital has treated like over 85,000 women now. We didn't start it, but we partner with them. So we basically help them expand their area of care. So we fly in, mostly women, to this facility where they can, they get a lot of times they need like restorative surgeries,
medical,
immediate like medical help, trauma counseling, and they get like training in a skill or a trade, so that they can re-enter society. Because after this happened, they're outcasts. You know,
Yeah.
nobody wants them, and just to show that they have value, they have like intrinsic like value. um, we hope to slowly like change the stigma around this.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. It's
and sometimes like the
definitely.
stigma is like half the tragedy, you know.
Yeah, it is, right? I mean, to be abandoned after you were forcibly raped
Exactly.
and then to be shunned because of that, that's like, what? Why would you do
Yeah.
that to that person? Like,
Because it
they
wasn't their
need,
fault.
yeah, it's
you
not
know?
their fault. They need love and support right now, not to be, but cultural differences and things that we can't understand exist, you know, over there. And yeah, hopefully, you know, that can be broken, because that would help their tactic not to be as effective,
Exactly.
you know, like, so.
That's how we can defeat them, you know.
But
And
I don't know anything, you know, that's just a perspective of mine. I'm not a professional in these matters or anything. You
Right.
know, and only really women that have been raped can be considered. Anybody that knows anything about that world, you know.
Yeah.
And any person raped, you know, obviously women aren't the only ones that are raped, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I mean,
that is a good
I don't
point.
mean unfortunately, but
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, you know, everybody
Yeah,
gets
I got you.
raped, you know, and
Yeah.
no matter your,
Because that's another thing,
Yeah.
like with the men, like in that culture, you're supposed to be like strong as a man, so you
Right.
don't talk about that stuff
Right.
at all. So they've actually treated some men too.
yeah,
And
for sure.
yeah, so to break that stigma too, might be
that's a hard one.
something in our future as well. But so that's like a glimmer of hope, you know, that there are people who are standing up and like doing incredible things. And another awesome things that I'm like always get excited about talking about is this group of pastors, and they fly into highly hostile areas and they try to mediate peace between warring tribes. And they've seen like people cease hostility between each other. And and they also like go out to areas that have been very plagued by war and different atrocities to you know, give them soul counseling,
Yeah.
and help people to seek reconciliation and forgiveness, you know, to forgive someone without being able to say it to that person is quite difficult, you know. And yeah, it's they do incredible work. But
So
also
you'll
want
be
to
flying these people to
Yeah.
these locations.
and now since it's like hard to travel at all, we actually there's some days we just fly people to get to one place to another.
Yeah. Because it's
and
nearly
that's like
impossible
the whole spectrum of
to
people.
take the
really.
road. So you guys are flying leaders. You're picking people up for medical attention, delivering, I'm imagining, goods at times in emergency situations or provisions and
Right, they have these, you know, outbreaks of like Ebola and all these like tropical
delivering
diseases.
medicine.
Yep, we do supply runs for them. So that's, you know, you mentioned that we partner with worldwide. We partner with over like 400 identified like organizations, and I can't remember the exact number in Congo, but yeah, like we support a lot of like medical efforts to to help and so that
Save
people won't die, you know. And they're in an extremely tough situation on multiple levels, and
there's a lot going on there.
I do want to mention too, like we don't just do like the flying. So in Bunia, where we operate from, so we had to our team had to evacuate from the base that we were originally at to Bunia a couple of years ago because of the conflict, and then we and in around Bunia, there's like more than 100,000 internally displaced people who had fled from their villages, basically with their lives,
Yeah.
and nothing else, and they live in like tarp tents, around the city, and no one really had the means or could care for them. So our team there started to reach out to them, started like a sewing classroom. So we hired like local sewing teachers so that they can build skill into this community so they can get jobs in town. Trained like pastors with basically like trauma counseling training for them. And now just this last year, this literacy class as well in their own language.
Yeah.
So
But
so
your
it's
wife
like,
is going to be a part of that?
hopefully. It kind of
With time,
depends.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we have kids, so I think like
exactly. There's
the
a focus
first
there.
Yeah, so we want to be there long term, till we retire or whatever. So we're gonna take it slow and see
no
like
rush,
where
right.
we fit in,
Yeah.
And see what our capacities are, because
Yeah.
moving there will be its own challenge.
One challenge right there,
Yeah.
right?
So
So you guys are MAF is involved. Obviously, we're in the community where its base is centered. You're helping around with your direct community. Then you're having your missions where you're flying out and delivering goods and delivering people that need to get to certain places, and you're doing so the aviation work. But then obviously you guys aren't just hanging out when you're back in town. You're doing other types of work for the community there and the people that are, for lack of a better term, the refugees or displaced people from the conflicts.
exactly. Yeah.
And there's like 1 million people that live in that area, right?
In Bunia,
in Bunia.
It's like a big village.
Yeah.
I mean, there's like
It's not
there's
like a
one
city. There's not like tall buildings. It's
No, they have like
it's
one
more-
grocery store.
okay.
What we've been told,
Right.
and like 2 restaurants.
Yeah.
And so it's a very different kind of city.
just a lot of a lot of people in an area, but not so much like a city with the infrastructure like we are
Exactly.
used to.
There's
you
like
know?
1
'Cause there's like 1 million people around this area,
something like that.
Spokane area. I think there's somewhere around that part. I don't know.
Yeah.
I know it's in that range, but it's a lot of people
Yeah.
just here.
Yeah. Exactly.
You know what I mean? And you're talking about a village that has 1 million people.
Yeah.
And I imagine there's not too many. Yeah, that's just wild. It's going to be a definite culture shock again.
Yeah.
And,
exactly.
And you said too, like I remember you saying, you have your own security guard for your house, right?
Yep.
Yeah, because I mean, it's still going to be, even though this is a major city, there's still probably conflict that comes near that city or into the city at times, or
Yeah, it's rare that
just because it's so many people and
yeah,
big
and then like the army is the Congolese army is there,
like the official Congolese army is
and then
there.
like the UN like peacekeeping
So you
troops
have them.
have a base there as well.
Oh, so that's
So it gives you
fairly
like
safer there.
yeah,
than
as far as like
comparatively.
the war goes,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
But yeah, we'll live in a house like out in the community, and it's normal for anyone, not just like foreigners, but even the Congolese to have a sentry, you know,
Right.
to
Just protect your
yeah,
home from
you know, and they
people
like
breaking
double
in or
shift as
whatever.
as your gardener, you know.
Yeah.
So it's like, or whatever, you know. So
yeah,
it's that's
standard, kind of normal.
yeah,
there, right?
in most parts of the world, that's kind of
Yeah, it's
the
weird
standard.
'cause here we're like we're own defenders a lot of times.
Yeah.
Like, you know, we'll
exactly
break in my home,
Yeah.
see what happens. But over there, it's
and, it's
I've
normal to have like
experienced-
walls, you know,
Yeah,
around
I've,
your
I've experienced that
property.
in Costa Rica.
Yeah.
Like Costa Rica, every home has like barbed wire fences
Exactly.
around it, or like some kind of fence structure that's for security.
Exactly.
And usually over the windows too. And then down at those places too, like you'll have like a security guard for the compound if you're like an apartment compound, or like
Exactly.
a guard at the gate if it's for a nicer, or I don't want to say nicer, but for a home. But yeah, I experienced that somewhat in Mexico too, where I was at some places. But yeah, man,
Yeah.
it's I can't wait to talk to you when you come back,
Right.
from the once
Exactly.
you're there and you've been there a few years and you come back to check in and just see the stories that you have then. Um, what else do you need to want to share? I know you need to share about how people can,
Right.
support this
Yeah.
mission if they want to.
Yeah. So actually on April 8th at 10 o'clock at Pitati's Coffee in the Garland district, we're going to have like a public invitation for people who want to come and to know more. And we'll show like pictures of the stuff that we do, and it will be an opportunity for people to ask questions and stuff like that. So yeah, and if you're just interested in hearing more about it, if you're interested in like partnering with us, there's different ways or different things that we need. We kind of touched on that earlier. We're about like halfway, just a little halfway of our support raising needs. So that is definitely a way. And yeah, so any contribution, big or small, we want to find more partners. So if you're interested in this, yeah, come in and talk to us. You can also email me. It'll be a Ottosson, OTTOSSON @maf.org.
And I'll put all the links in your notes too for this show, so
Sounds
that
good.
people can access that information easily.
Very good. Yeah. And yeah, we love like knowing our supporters personally, because we see this as like a relationship
Yeah,
that we have. And
sure.
and yeah, it's really like our supporters that are carrying us
yeah,
to the Congo. So
yeah, man.
and keeping us there. So
Yeah, keeping you
Yeah.
there, and
yeah.
yeah.
It's fun. It's a team effort. Our MEF's mission statement is serving together to bring help, hope, and healing through aviation. And maybe I should have mentioned that earlier, but that's basically like what we're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, the
Everything we
mission
do
statement.
goes through that mission, and the together part cannot be understated. That it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, it's us doing a lot of the direct work, but we partner with the people who live there, the Congolese and other organizations that come in, and you also get to partner with us and them indirectly, So
Yeah,
yeah, it's cool. It's cool to see
yeah,
it taking form,
yeah. And I mean, yeah, teamwork makes the dream work. Like, not all of us can go over to Congo and help the people
Exactly.
there. It's just that is what
And
it is.
not
and
everyone is called either,
No,
So
yeah,
it's
and so, but you can help support things going on in the world and being a part of it through other means, whether that's
Exactly.
just financial.
Yep.
In my case right now, it's financial, but maybe sometime in the future I'll be able to come over there,
Exactly.
and help
Yep.
out in some way for a few weeks or whatever it may be.
Mm-hmm.
That like that's on like a big part of like why I do want to support you, because I'm like, I want to come over, dog.
Yeah.
Like I want to be involved with city chapters, or just my life. Forget my brand, just my life. Like, man, just being at service is something that I've been trying to really learn, and like that, that's something that maybe more I took from Jesus, from my learnings in church. But I really feel like so much of my life has been centered on me, 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 me. Like, how do I better me, and like, really, I have so much. Really, I'm so blessed, but I get so stuck in this societal trap that we live in, that it's always coming back to like, what can I do to better my life, to put myself in a higher position, dot, dot, dot. And I never really find fulfillment there, and it's like, So what is it that I need to change in my life? And the one thing I always come back to is like, dude, you need to stop focusing on yourself, because really you're blessed and there's so much that you could probably do to help others that don't have nowhere near what you do, and like, really, I'm already rich, but I'm trained because of the way I'm been raised in this society that it's never enough. You can always get more, and I'm trying to break that cycle of thought. And so I love talking to people like you, man, that are like, yo, I'm going to do this thing with my life to help others.
Yeah.
And that's amazing. And
Yeah.
I want to acknowledge you, Alfred. From the day I met you, you've always been a grounded, well respected, and
Thank
just
you.
like just a good man.
Yeah.
Like you've always had that about you. And it goes a long way, man. I'm really stoked for your journey that you're
Thank
going
you.
on. I'm glad that I can support in a little way. I'm glad that I have started this podcast so you could even just be
Exactly.
here today so we could have a further conversation on it. And I hope it helps you out in your mission somehow. You know what I mean? And we'll have you back on when you're back in Spokane. We'll probably do something else along the way where we have you just on a Zoom call or something. We can
Sure.
just kind of check in with you.
Sounds great.
But thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here
Thanks
today.
for having me.
Yeah. All right. That's Alfred Ottoson. I'm Bobby J, and this is City Chapters Podcast. Till next time.
All right.